Hi everyone, good morning and welcome to the Redmen TV. My name is Dan Klopp. I'm going to be here for the next 20 minutes, half an hour, something like that. Talk about all the latest news involving the Reds. How are we, first and foremost? Hope we are well on this Thursday morning, a particularly sunny Thursday morning in Liverpool as well. A couple of hours earlier today. Schedules here at Redmen are not all over the place. That would be too much of a stretch, but busy days and weeks ahead. And you'll be seeing all the content to come out of those busy times in due course. But yeah, I hope everyone's good. Jonesy lads, morning mate. Hope you are well. Yeah, I'm sound. Cheers, Angus. I hope the same applies. Yeah, cool. Who's leaving at the end of the season? Asked James Cribbins. Well, without further ado, I'll dive into that story then, shall I? It's a good place to start. And as the Nizu Bizu rightly points out, it is one of Klopp's doppelgangers. I say that, I actually don't see the resemblance too strongly, if I'm being honest with you, but I get it at the same time. Andreas Kornmeier will be leaving his post as head of fitness and conditioning at the end of the season. So the latest in what is now a pretty hefty line of departures from Liverpool's backroom team. Obviously, we know about Jurgen Klopp being the headline act to be departing the football club, but a lot of his staff were initially announced that they were going to leave with him. Pep Lijnders, Peter Kravitz, Vitor Matos as well, and since that we've learned of John Achterberg, and now Andreas Kornmeier will also be leaving their roles. This comes from This is Anfield, David Lynch, good friend of mine and indeed the show. This is Anfield understands the 49-year-old will follow Jurgen Klopp through the Anfield exit door this summer, 8 years on after arriving ahead of his compatriot's first full campaign in charge. It goes on to say Kornmeier joins a lengthy list of backroom staff who will depart in May. Kravitz, Lijnders, Matos and Achterberg all publicly confirmed their imminent exits. I also mentioned their head of recovery and performance, Andreas Schlumberger, who joined the Reds in 2020, is also expected to leave. And as it mentioned just in this bottom line here in the bottom paragraph, it leaves Arne Slot and sporting director Richard Hughes and perhaps a little bit of Michael Edwards needing to make several key backroom appointments. Now, some of them are already made. Obviously, we know about Arne Slot, the incoming head coach. He's bringing, I think, 2 or 3 of his own backroom staff with him. Now, whether that was with an eye of sort of having some of Liverpool's existing staff work alongside him as well, the likes of Achterberg and Kornmeier potentially, and now he needs to rethink that, and he might have to look back at the people he's had at Feyenoord, or even people he's worked with at AZ Alkmaar previously, and he might need to make a few phone calls or drop a few WhatsApp messages over the coming days to round up the troops, as it were. But yeah, Liverpool are now in need of more staff ultimately, and I think is it a good thing there's a bit of a fresh start and Slot's going to have his own people? Possibly. I mean, when it comes to certainly John Achterberg, he's overseen, numerous different managers now in his 15-year time with the club, and he's done a good job pretty much throughout the course of that. So it's not necessarily written in stone that the new manager wants his own people and only works with his own people. That's not always the case necessarily. But in this instance, when Slot arrives, he's going to have to bring in a lot of his own people. Right, let's go into some more chat before we get into the new year. James Cribbins, I'm with you. I don't think anyone's quite come to terms with that. It started to hit home a little bit more recently, when obviously we've seen like more and more of the content come out around it and all the goodbye stuff. And it is very, very sad as well, Nigel. I tend to agree. But I'm not sure it's necessarily something we don't know about. I think when someone, a figurehead as powerful and as important, as integral to the whole club, as like Jurgen Klopp has been, leaves, I think it's only natural. Certainly when it comes to like Achterberg's been there for 15 years, Kornmeier's been there 8 years, Lijnders beyond that as well. I think it's only natural that people will assess their future and not necessarily think, oh, well, I've got to go now because Klopp's gone. But you're going to sit down, you're going to take a minute and say, right, what's next for me? Because if someone as I say, someone as important as Jurgen Klopp had that exact same thought process, you'd be remiss not to do it yourself, and you think about your family and all that sort of stuff. And is this a good time to be moving on to your own fresh challenge, stuff like that? And clearly some of these people have decided that it is, and I can't really begrudge them that either. What I will say before we move on to some of the other news, the replicator is absolutely spot on. Yeah, this is a point I've made a couple of times recently on a few different shows actually. I think, speaking of being remiss, I think it'd be remiss of Liverpool not to bring in a set piece coach ahead of next season. We've had one in the past. I think this season the duties of working on set pieces have kind of been delegated a little bit, but I'm in agreement. I think we need a specialist coach now. We've seen the advantage you can give. The fine margins at the top of the Premier League are exactly that. They're very, very fine. But pretty much throughout the league, most teams now have a specialist guy on this, or female for that matter, and they're exploiting set pieces in a way that Liverpool don't appear to be. A lot of Liverpool set pieces, for me, and this is far too simplistic, but bear with me a second, it feels like if Virgil van Dijk doesn't get on the end of it from an attacking standpoint, we've got a problem. And if Virgil van Dijk doesn't get on the end of it from a defensive standpoint, we have a problem. Outside of that, it feels like a whole game plan. And it isn't, obviously. But it does feel like it's kind of Virgil van Dijk or nothing at times. And that clearly isn't a healthy position to be in. And like I say, when you see Arsenal, Man City, Brentford really exploiting them and getting the best out of them. I mean, Man City caught us out with one at Anfield, didn't they? So I think we do need one coming in. And he goes further and says, bring one in from the NFL. I'm not a big NFL guy, truth be told, but I know it's very strategic and it's very strict and very implemented, their set plays and their movements and stuff like that. So there might be something in that. Sound Jonesy Lad asks, I'll move on to the other news in a second, but I'll just address this question first. What should our realistic expectancy be for next season? That's an interesting one, that. I think it's hard. That's harder than normal. I think if Klopp was staying, given the season we've had, having, I think then a title push would have been a realistic thing to say, because we've had that a little bit this season, albeit it's fallen by the wayside obviously more recently. But I think maybe something similar and maybe another cup run perhaps. But ultimately, I'm saying that now and I'm trying to be as balanced as possible. I think when it comes around to next season, depending on the summer we have and obviously incomings and outgoings, I think all of us will sit here and say, why not? Let's try and win this league. And Arne Slot has got a proven track record of winning leagues first and foremost, but also making fast starts at teams. And if he can implement his own ways and get his ideas across quickly, and we can get the buy-in moving in the right direction quickly as well, there's no reason why we can't do something special once again, because that's what this club does. Sad. Luke says top four a minimum on that as well. And I think a lot of people, with the core Man news, just come back to it quickly as well, a lot of people have I've seen it all over social media this morning about, obviously our injury record isn't particularly outstanding, and I guess Schlumberger and Kornmeier have both been, involved in that situation. But I wouldn't necessarily sort of point the direction of blame or the finger of blame at them too. I think we've just have been a tad unfortunate with some players, and let's be honest about it, we have owned some players who have a history of picking up injuries. Look at Thiago, obviously Naby Keita previously as well, and unfortunately, perhaps more than anyone, Diogo Jota falls into that category as well. I will move on in 1 second. Before I do, would you sell Nunez? And we spoke about Darwin Nunez a lot yesterday on the news show, so I'm not going to go into it too much today. I wouldn't sell Darwin Nunez, no. I did say this yesterday as well. I think Arne Slot will look at him and look at everything he offers and his attributes and his skill set, and think he can get the best out of him, because again, he has a very impressive track record of getting the best out of similar ilk number 9s to Darwin Nunez. So I think he'll fancy his chances of doing the same. However, if Barcelona or whoever were offering a price, I don't know, money back as a minimum, I think I probably want more, if I'm being honest with you, because again, I think he has a hell of a lot more to come and to offer to the Reds this season. And it depends who you get into a place him, of course. If you're saying you can get your 80 million or like 100 million back for Darwin Nunez, and you can then go and get Isak or someone of that stature, then maybe. But realistically, no, I'm more than happy to stick with Darwin Nunez. However, again, I said yesterday, if we're here in 12 months' time and he's had a very similar season and he hasn't quite managed to nail down that consistent performance that we need from our number 9, then yeah, it's a different conversation altogether. Sound. Let's dive into some more news. And the big name actually doing the rounds at the moment, he's been sort of getting name checked quite a lot of late, and it hasn't stopped at all. And Neil Jones, another friend of the show, has been speaking to Court Offside, and he has been speaking about Willian Pacho. He said the links have substance. He said the 22-year-old is in his first season in the Bundesliga after moving from Royal Antwerp last summer. He's contracted until 2028. Just scroll past some of those links. There's of adverts there, just quickly. The Ecuadorian's played 42 times for Frankfurt this season and has missed just 3 games. Availability the Reds will value in addition to his senior experience at just 22. And speaking of that experience, I'll pop over here now. There's those 42 games there. And interestingly, albeit only 1 game as a left back, obviously 41 coming as centre back, 2 assists, but who cares from a centre back position, to be honest. He's left footed, and that ability to be left footed and to play a very little bit of left back could come in handy as well. I think all last summer we were all crying out for a left footed centre half just to offer that balance and to add that extra little thing that we don't commonly possess, and Pacho ticks that particular box. And I did also take a look, as I often do, FB Ref, at some of the players he compares to stylistically, and there's some decent names in amongst it as well. Jon-Clair Todibo, the Nice centre-half, who's heavily linked with a move to someone big this summer, if not in the near future. And Simon Kjaer as well at Milan, decent enough player. Malik Fior, good player. Diego Llorente at Roma. Issa Diop, who, albeit maybe not top class centre-half, is a solid enough Premier League centre-half. Likewise, Mac Kilman. Less so this guy these days. But to the point, at only 22, being sort of likened to some of those names isn't terrible company to be keeping, I would say, for Pacho. So yeah, there appears to be quite a high ceiling there, and I do think we will most definitely be in the market for the centre half, and that is the name that's being linked more often than not recently. It's been going on for around about a month now. And as I say, Neil Jones has suggested that there is indeed a possibility that could be a thing. Big Country says, for a Matip replacement, good deal, but we need another centre-back. Yeah, possibly. Hi, Steve. Hope you're okay, mate. I'm sound, buddy. I'm sound. Hope the same applies. Yeah, I think, and I'm going to bring up this comment here from Charles. Like, you say that, right, and I get it, but Liverpool don't have a history. The model's never really been by world class. There's only been, I mean, you could argue Virgil van Dijk wasn't world class, albeit he was far more experienced than most of the signings we've made. Sadio Mane, was he world class when we signed him? Alisson Becker, possibly. But realistically, most of our signings, and our successful ones at that, have been signings of players who aren't quite in their peak or their prime yet. They're kind of getting there and they're ready to burst onto the scene. Liverpool have made a lot of these players what they are, not necessarily the other way around. There's been very few examples of Liverpool buying a player who's proven, been there, done it, seen it. Thiago might be the only one, and you could have a conversation about whether that really worked, to be honest with you. Andy Robertson, exactly this. Thank you very much. And there's countless examples similar to this. We don't necessarily buy the finished article, do we, at Liverpool? So if you don't think Pacho is that guy, then he might not be just yet, and that's fine. But as soon as Liverpool buy him, give him 6 months, a year in the team, all of a sudden he might be that guy. So yeah, I'd reserve judgment and just saying he's not the person, not the lad just yet, because Liverpool, again, have a history, certainly with Michael Edwards involved, of signing ready to go, ready to burst footballers. AC Crimmins says we don't need world class for left footed centre back if Virgil signs it. Yeah, that as well is a very good point. And I think the left footed centre back is an interesting topic, really. Again, we talked about this a lot over the course of last summer's transfer window. Obviously, there was Gonzalo Inacio, there was Levi Colwill for a while as well. Piero Hincapié at Leverkusen was quite heavily linked. So I think if we are dipping into the market for a centre half this summer, and somebody made the point a minute ago about replacing Joel Matip, I'm not sure we need a Joel Matip replacement. I wonder whether Joel Quansah is just that. It feels like he could be, to be honest with you. However, we do definitely need an understudy, therefore, to Virgil van Dijk, somebody who can give him a game off for every now and then, basically. And again, somebody who might be able to cover the left back a little bit as well, depending on what we do with the inverted Trent. When Arne Slot comes in, that obviously remains to be seen, because it means our left back needs to drop into centre back a little bit as well. Koe Katora is another name, JD, who's been doing the rounds as well. And possibly, I come back to it, I think we're almost certain to sign one, and a lot of the noise is suggesting, and Gary just made this point actually with Joel Quansah, and 100% he has, and possibly even Conor Bradley as well, so maybe to a lesser extent. But I think there might have been some who would have been looking at the right back situations, and we might need to buy a backup right back this summer, because it hasn't really worked with Calvin Ramsey. Injuries have plagued his time since he arrived at Liverpool, really. But I think Conor Bradley has solved the issue of going into the market, and as you say, if Joel Matip does leave, like we all expect him to, as a free agent. Of course, it will be at this rate. I think we're pretty much covered in that department on that side, thanks to Joel Quansah and just how exceptional he's been. He's been superb. Var Montar says, Skep, it's just Sep. Van den Berg can play on the left side as well. Yeah, his future is a really interesting one. I know the lads, Chris and Josh, did a bit of a deep dive into the loanees, obviously Morton, Carvalho, and indeed Sepp van den Berg. And he's had a really good season on loan at Mainz. And it's funny how about 6 months ago, a lot of people would have been forgetting about Sepp van den Berg a little bit and not necessarily suggesting he might have a future. There's a lot of talk about having an option to buy at Mainz as well, and just kind of assuming he'll stay there. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh no, he could be a part of Liverpool's plans. He could be, of course he could be. And I think this is a good point as well. I think pre-season will hold the key for a lot of these lads that we're talking about. Certainly Van den Berg, obviously Carvalho, possibly even Tyler Morton as well. A lot of these loanees, maybe Luke Chambers a little bit, who spent obviously the back end of last season on loan at Wigan. They might be looking to impress, or they could be looking for a move away again when the summer comes around. The Replicator asks, why do we appear not to be interested in Ignacio? I wouldn't say we weren't interested in him necessarily steadfastly. I think there is a possibility we take another look at that situation, but what I will say is that Willian Pacho appears to have usurped him in the pecking order when it comes to transfer targets, because again, a lot of the talk in recent weeks in particular has been about him and nobody else. And I wonder whether the Ruben Amorim stuff has put us off Ignacio a little bit. Not necessarily, it's not as cut and dried as that, of course, isn't, but I think had we have got Amorim, I think the likelihood is that Ignacio might have followed. I'm not sure we'll go back there, if I'm being perfectly honest, but remains to be seen. What I will say is, again, I definitely think we need that type of player. So I'll dive back into some more news before we carry on. Don Cormier, Don Pacho, Mohamed Amora, or the man described as Little Salah in training by his teammates, is also reportedly on the radar of Liverpool. Obviously an attacker. Let me just get his stats up there before we go on. He plays for a team we are familiar with, having played against them this season in Union Saint-Gilloise. He's 24 years of age. He's an Algerian international. He's under contract at Union until 2027. Let me just clear that off there. There we go. Wonderful. He is 24, as mentioned, Algerian, known as Little Salah by his teammates, currently playing for Union, so we have come up against him this season, and his numbers this season are absolutely exceptional. He's played 44 times across all competitions, scored 23 goals and provided 7 assists, exclusively, however, as a centre forward. So if we are looking for a Mo Salah replacement, he may not be that guy, but numbers-wise, absolutely top draw. And obviously you can see his games against Liverpool there as well. Scored an assist in their 2-1 win on the final day of the group stage. So yeah, a name and a player familiar to the Reds. And we do have a history, really, at Liverpool of signing players who played well against us, certainly whilst Klopp's been at the club. Whether that changes in the future remains to be seen. Takumi Minamino springs to mind when it comes to that. Sadio Mane before him. So, yeah, I think there's something in that. I think for Liverpool into this summer, so much of our business is going to depend on what happens with these lads who need new contracts, in particular Mohamed Salah. I think if he sticks around, maybe that shifts our targets a little bit. Maybe we look to maybe go for a centre forward, maybe somebody else on the left wing. But Luis Diaz is linked with a move away as well. As already mentioned, Darwin Nunez is linked with a move away too. And if he's unhappy, which, let's be honest, it kind of looks like he is right now, possibly that means we have to go somewhere else. But yeah, I think there's definitely a likelihood, and I said this yesterday on the same show, this summer is so fascinating because new manager, obviously, as we know, Michael Edwards back on board, Richard Hughes, new sporting director. The way they look at players, and even maybe some key players that we perceive to be untouchable, in inverted commas, they might have completely different viewpoints on. Like, their opinion could be vastly different to ours. And they may come in, look at that person and go, not quite sure about you. If we get a good offer or an offer of this much, you're not necessarily untouchable. You could well be for sale. And I think there's going to be a few that fall into that category. And therefore, the replacements that follow will be really intriguing, but none more so than Mohamed Salah, because I've said it countless times on this show. What happens to him this summer, I don't know, honestly. And I was more shocked by the reports of him potentially staying and signing a new deal than I would have been about him looking to move on, and interest from Saudi Arabia, of course. Gary says Bakayoko or Elise for me. We spoke about Bakayoko a lot yesterday. I really like Michael Elise. Injuries will be a concern there. Kirkes is a good shout for the backup left back, and anyone who was with me on a new show recently about Kostas Tsimikas, I do think it's probably time for Kostas Tsimikas to look for more regular football, basically. And if we're sat here in the end of August or gone deadline day next summer and he's still a footballer for Liverpool, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever. VAR mentions Leif Davis. But I think Kostas as a backup left back, as an understudy to Andy Robertson, is absolutely incredible. Like, properly. You don't get backups of that quality very often. It just doesn't exist, really. But I think Kostas now is of the age whereby he probably needs to be playing more regular footy. I don't think he's ever going to nail down his spot beyond Andy Robertson, because every time you think he does, Andy Robertson just comes back with a vengeance and he plays better and better and better. And recently, Robertson's been doing that brilliantly. So, yeah, I don't know whether Kostas is ever going to be the guy. So maybe, we spoke about a young left back yesterday, you do allow Kostas Tsimikas to leave the club and then you look elsewhere at somebody a bit younger, possibly some of the names mentioned, Kirkes being one of them. JD says, I think we will be in for Tosin Adebayo from Fulham, a free agent who's Premier League proven and is classed as home. Yeah, that, if we're going to sign one, and we're going to buy one, I can envisage something similar. I think Tosin Adebayo is a candidate for that. I also think Lloyd, why have I forgot his name? Why is his name completely gone? Lloyd Kelly, thank you, Chloe. Shouting for I think he's a candidate as well for that from Bournemouth, to be honest. And I seen yesterday that Tosin Adebayo was talking to Spurs, I think, but that move isn't going to materialise. So, yeah, I think there's something in that, to be honest with you. Adebayo, Lloyd Kelly, I do think there'd be an option there. Gary says cash in on Diaz and Salah for $180 million, which is a unit of currency that I don't use very often. What's my thoughts? I can see one leaving, not of Diaz or Salah, one of Diaz, Nunez or Salah. I honestly can see one of them leaving this summer. Which one? I don't know. But I don't think two of them go. I think two of them is too much upheaval. I think you're replacing too much if you lose two of those players. I can't see one of them going. I think Liverpool sell one of Diaz, Salah and Nunez this summer. And I kind of hope not, if I'm being honest with you. I'd be more than content to be sat here with the same group of forwards next year, maybe with a youngster signed. But then that youngster being signed might just be Ben Doak being back involved, or Kate Gordon being back involved potentially. Jayden Danns falls into that as well. So, yeah, it's a fascinating one. But as I say, right now, I'd be more shocked if we owned Diaz, Nunez and Salah at the start of next season. They would be the other way around, personally. But we'll see. Kiffin it. Yeah, 2 is 1 too many. I agree. And Charles J thinks Diaz are going to go to Barca. The Barca stuff's fascinating, isn't it? And every time any South American gets linked to Barcelona, and some Liverpool fans, lose their head about it, it's kind of par for the course. Like, South Americans, whether we like it or not, very often their dream is to play for Barcelona. And we as Liverpool fans see Liverpool as the be-all and end-all. You've completed football if you play for Liverpool, of course you have, and that's how we look at it, and rightfully so. But unfortunately, to most South Americans, and when they court themselves, and when their parents come out and when their agents come out and speak glowingly about any of the Spanish clubs, but in particularly Barca, and we say, well, go then. Yeah, we had it with Luis Suarez, didn't we? We had it with Philippe Coutinho, actually, to maybe even a lesser extent. It's annoying, but I also get it. And it's kind of, if there's a Liverpool fan, I don't know, playing in London somewhere, Harvey Elliott maybe, and he was coming out when he was at Fulham saying, oh yeah, I like playing for Fulham, but I'd love to play for Liverpool, that's my dream. It's kind of the same sort of thing. It's a bit crap if you own that player and you love them, but also, what do you expect? And that's kind of where I'm at with Diaz, and a little bit Darwin Nunez, to be honest with you. It wouldn't shock me if either one of them held out dreams or hopes or aspirations of moving to Barcelona one day, because they do. The Replicator says, Barcelona are the most irritating team. Boo-hoo, we don't have any money, but here's an outrageous contract for. Yeah, and when we spoke a lot about Darwin Nunez and his uncertain future at Liverpool yesterday, a lot of the conversation was around whether Barca can afford Darwin Nunez. And listen, perhaps not, but I think they pulled about $1 million levers to sign about 5 players recently. I do think Barcelona, they're a weird club, and they're much like Real Madrid actually in the same way. They're a weird club because they're a massive club, and they always find a way. Like their revenues and their help that they get from the government and the bank in Spain, it helps. And I do think if they sold 2 or 3 players, which they're probably likely to do actually this summer, Barcelona, they could fund one big move. But I do wonder whether Robert Lewandowski sticks around. That might have a big say on what happens to Darwin and them. Mohammed says very hard to get 60 million for Louis Wasteful. That's a harsh middle name. Diaz. I think the problem with Diaz is, and it is a problem, of course it is. The footballer that he is, when you're following somebody as brilliant, as absolutely incredible as Sadio Mane, it's very hard because not only are you replacing an incredible footballer, but Sadio Mane's output and his numbers was just top tier. It really was. We had Mohamed Salah on one side, Sadio Mane on the other, and they were both banging in 20 goals, all comps, minimum a season. Luis Diaz isn't that player, and he's probably never likely to be that player. So it's frustrating. Luis Diaz has been exceptional recently. His all-round performances, he's carried the fight in a lot of games whereby Liverpool haven't been very good, but because he isn't the goal scorer that we want him to be, he leaves a lot to be desired sometimes, which again can be annoying. But does that mean he's a bad player? Not necessarily. Russell Stubley says Kudus is done for next summer. The release scores, I would literally guarantee it. Yeah, I've seen that. Release scores of like 85 million that's valid in 2025, possibly. But does that mean we keep Salah and just let him walk away for free next summer, and then we replace him with Kudus for 85 million? Poof. We know Michael Edwards likes a release clause, but that is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to change hands when you've got nothing for Salah. Let's put it that way anyway. If Salah does walk away for free and you then spend 85 million, oh, wow. Russell Stubby says Salah will stay. Yeah, will he stay, but will he sign a new contract? What do you think? Because I've said this countless times now, I can't see him staying and Liverpool letting him walk away for free. We've done it in the past with different players, Wijnaldum, Keita, Bobby Firmino, etc. But there's a difference between letting 30, 40 million pound assets walk out to Mohamed Salah, who realistically I still think you could get like 100 million for this summer if you wanted to, certainly from Saudi Arabia. So yeah, that's a big call, and not a call that would be sort of akin to the type that FSG are renowned for making. Let's put it that way. One more news story to touch upon before we wrap up. According to reports in Spain, Liverpool have been working for months to sign Spanish under-21 international Alberto Melero. Now, quickly on him, he plays currently for UD Las Palmas, a lovely part of the world. 20 years of age, as mentioned, Spanish under-21 international. He's played 27 times in all comps this season. 2 goals, 3 assists in 24 La Liga appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist in the Copa del Rey. Plays as a left winger, speaking of Luis Diaz, predominantly. Played also with a little bit of a central attacking midfielder and a very little bit as a right winger as well. So very versatile. And according to Replicator, he's good in Football Manager, and that's all I need to know, to be honest with you. That will do for me. Yeah. Eric the Cop, let's dive into the chat before we wrap up. I want Isak, don't we all? Gory says Diaz won't impress. Edwards' laptop, his assists since joining have been quite a pull. And yeah, I'll come back to it. His numbers just aren't great. Charles J says Diaz is technically way better than Mane. It's just Mane was devastating. Yeah, possibly that. I think in terms of ball carrying and dribbling, Diaz might just pip Sadio Mane ever so slightly. But again, I'll come back to it. When it comes to in front of goal, clinical numbers, there's no competition, is there? Let's be brutally honest about it. Gary says he's confident this Liverpool team can kick on and challenge next season again. Future looks bright. Can't wait to get behind Arnie. Absolutely agree with that. Peter M says 100 million in the bank to reinvest is huge. Let Salah go on good terms and it's a win-win for everyone. I'll be honest with you, that's kind of where I was at for a while, but more recent reports suggest that might not be happening. Russell Stubley said Isak, the injury record is bad. Yeah, he's picked up a few injuries this year. Would everyone swap Nunez for Isak? Asked the Replicator. I was going to ask you a trivia question at the top, but I completely forgot. On this day in 2011, Max Rodriguez scored a hat-trick against Fulham, and there's been 7 Argentinians who've played for Liverpool. Can you name them quickly in the chat before I go? 7 Argentinians. One of them, he played for Argentina, at certain levels, but he wasn't born in Argentina, and he's probably the most niche one of the lot as well, to be fair. So yeah, see if you can name the Argentinians who play for Liverpool in the next 2 minutes before I leave you all. Dom Lair says, someone find us Vinny Jr. 2.0. I think on the note of signing players, yeah, good shout, Russell Stubley. That's the niche one. Well done. On the note of signing players directly from Brazil and South America in general, it's not something Liverpool have been particularly keen on doing in recent times. Obviously, we're heavily linked to Andre last summer from Fluminense, and I just wonder whether the talk of having multi-club ownership and potentially owning a club in Portugal, whatever you think about that, by the way, that's a conversation for another day. I wonder whether if FSG do suddenly take ownership of another club that essentially acts as a feeder club for us or somewhere across Europe, signing players then from South America and placing them there for a couple of years whilst they get acclimatised and get used to European football, feels like a much more sort of sensible way of doing that. JD, by the way, in Stuart Mascherano is absolutely spot on. Russell Stubley, very nicely done. And yeah, YOLO for life. I thought a lot of people might forget about Alexi McAllister because obviously we still own him, and it can be quite easy to forget about those guys. James LFC has been saying for some time that we should get Isak. No, he was Uruguayan. JD, he was Uruguayan. I hope he was. Now I've said that out loud. I'm 99% certain he was. He was, thanks. Charles J. Mascherano, the best. Charles J. also in Stewart, absolutely spot on. Have we got everyone? No, there's one missing. And to be fair, another quite niche one is missing. I'll give you a clue. His centre half he was, and I feel like he was. Who? Long hair. Yeah, he did have long hair. He's quite a relatively attractive man, actually, I would say. For he had that South American good looks go. Chloe shouting to me through the. If anyone's wondering why I'm having a conversation with myself, that's why. I want to say he's managing as we speak. He is definitely a football manager. Let me find out where he's at before I give you his name. Yeah, he is a company manager. Okay, I wouldn't have guessed where he was, though. Wow. Has anyone said it in the chat yet? Yeah, we've got Max Rodriguez. I mean, yeah, I literally said his name at the top of this entire question. So yeah, we have him. No, it's not Sebastian Coates. He is Uruguayan, everyone. You can hear Chloe. Okay, I didn't know you can hear. That's nice. It's not Gabriel Heinz. Who's Gabriel Heinz? I do think obviously play for United. So no is the answer to what you've just said. But did we nearly sign him? Or did he want to join us or something? And there's a story in there somewhere. Let me just double check. There's a lot going on now. I'm sure did he want to sign for us or did we nearly sign him? One of them. Gabriel Heinz. He demanded a transfer to Liverpool during the close season in United. I knew there was something in that. God, that was a few years ago. Wow, okay. Has anyone said it yet? It's all good, mate. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Yeah, somebody has said it. Well done to you. Shall I say it? Let's say it. And WD Red, I think, was the first one to say it. Apologies if there's someone above that I have not seen. Pellegrino. Mauricio Pellegrino, played for Liverpool. He now has short hair, actually. He's cut his hair. He's currently managing Cadiz in Spain as well. So, yeah, well done to you if you said that. Somebody, Nigel Smith, has as well has also said it. Yeah, he was all right. He was a very stopgappy type signing for the Reds. But yeah, he was fine. Cool, I think that's all 7. Boss, sound. I'll quickly run through the news before I leave you all. We are obsessed. We're obsessed with long-haired South Americans. Yeah, maybe. We've had a few in our time. Sound. Willian Pacho, according to Neil Jones, the links to him have substance. Liverpool very much in the market for centre-half this summer, and Pacho is very much among the contenders for that. Andreas Kornmeier, David Lynch of This Is Anfield has reported he will be among the departures from Liverpool's backroom staff this summer when Jurgen Klopp leaves, of course. According to L'Equipe in France, Mohamed Amoura is on Liverpool's radar. He is known as Little Salah in training, which is quite cute. Currently plays for Union Saint-Gilloise and is an Algerian international. And according to a report in Spain, Alberto Melero, Liverpool have been working for months to sign the Spanish 21 international. The club are open for sale. That club is Las Palmas as well, if you're interested. Sound. Cool, I think we're all done. Thank you very much. Chloe, get the bacon butties on, please, sister, says Nigel. Sound. Thank you very much. Bye. See you soon.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out the content today. If you want to get your name in and amongst these wonderful people, then head to redmenplus.com. Join as a legend tier subscriber. You're going to get free merchandise codes. You're going to get in our Discord, and you're going to get your name at the end of YouTube videos. Yes, redmenplus.com, legend tier status.